Hi folks, welcome to today's edition of our videocast, My Life with Robert Burns. We're pleased you could join us. Douglas Mackenzie and Jim Thompson here again to have a blether with another of our cronies. Hi Jim, how you doing?
Doing great today, Douglas. Hi everybody.
Today we're joined by a former president of the Robert Burns World Federation Limited. Cronies everywhere to tell us about his life with Robert Burns. Please welcome Jimmy Gibson.
Hi Douglas, hi Jim, nice to be here. I've listened in to some of your broadcasts already and I have to say very interesting and I've heard lots of great things. I myself, Kilmarnock man, born and bred a long time ago on the 14th of March 1948. My father was a Kilmarnock man as well. He was a World War II veteran and had fought with the Seaforth Highlanders over through Europe and was wounded at one point, and he finished up driving lorries in Greece where he met my mother, and he brought her back here in 1946. So I have a great mother, and I don't know why she moved here from the sunshine to the rain and stuff of Kilmarnock, but she enjoyed it. She liked Kilmarnock. The first morning she came, she arrived in February 1947 and woke up to 2 feet of snow outside. It was the first time she'd ever seen snow, so she was quite thrilled about it. We stayed in Riccarton, so I attended Riccarton Primary, where Burns was one of the houses. That's the first time I heard the word Burns. Burns, Scott, Galt and Hogg. And Burns, I remember, was red, but I had no idea who Burns was, I have to say. Later on at school, there was a Burns competition in primary 7, but at that time it was beyond me because I knew nothing about Burns at all, and nobody had told me about him. But it came to the qualifying exam, and I remember this, our teacher was a female called Margaret Parker, and I'm sure Jim will remember Margaret Parker. She's a former Tory provost of Kilmarnock, a very rare being. She had been a very good badminton player, and she'd been president of the Scottish Country Dance Society. I remember sitting one night and they played the Margaret Parker Strathspey, which really surprised me. So she's quite a well-known female and an excellent teacher. And she was very keen on country dancing. So when we had to go out to get our jotters marked, she insisted that we do the Paddy Bar. And you can imagine these big local farmers with their tackety boots doing the Paddy Bar. But I can tell you, until this very day, I can still do the Paddy Bar. She was quite a woman as well. She drank whiskey, she smoked, and she used to come to the burn suppers in Kilmarnock. And I remember her, she'd be sitting with a guy like Bill Morrison or something doing a recitation, and you would hear this voice doing the recitation as well. It was Margaret. Margaret knew all the poetry, so she would be reciting the poetry as well with the reciter. My first involvement, I suppose, with Burns, I moved to Kilmarnock Academy in 1960. August 1960, and it was a different world for me. I was a wee country boy from Kirkstyle and Riccarton. I hadn't really met the world at all, and I moved from the quiet country Riccarton to the big town of Kilmarnock, which was bustling at the time, to the hallowed portals of Kilmarnock Academy, and I have to say, a different kind of people in person. I was the wee semi-country boy from Kirkstyle. And suddenly I was in Kilmarnock Academy with these rather posh people, you know, who lived locally. Very assured, very better off, and a lot more confident than I was. I remember that quite clearly. The second year at Kilmarnock Academy was my first contact with Burns. We had a Burns competition. It was a recital. There must have been about 30 folk in the class or such like. And I remember, by the time the teacher got to his 23rd wee slicket timorous beastie, he was almost comatose, you know, until it came to young Gibson. And young Gibson stood up and said, "Of all the earths the wind can blow, I dearly like the west, for there the bonny lassie lives, the lassie I love best." Burns worked for me that day, and much praise was heaped on my young shoulder. So Burns was A-okay with me.
I know what prompted you to go a different route to everybody else.
Well, in actual fact, my father had a buns book and he knew his buns. And when I said I was going to do it to a mouse, why don't you try this one? And it was only everybody else did to a mouse. I was the only one that did something else. So I scored points that day.
Jim, just while you're talking about going to Kilmarnock Academy, was Rosebank still erect when you went to Kilmarnock Academy?
Yes. It knocked it down in 1966. This is Thompson.
Yeah, Tom Thompson's house, Rosebank.
1966 knocked it down. It was still there during my school days, I remember. I'm sure it was 66. They took it down because there's a wee bit rot in it, you know. Which was,
it was
sad.
25th of January as well, it was taken down.
Sandy Drain. You remember the whale like Sandy? I got a girdle, you know, these black, not a girdle, a swee from the fire. And Sandy said he had taken it when they took away the paneling in the wall. The old range was there. So he took the swee off and he kept it in his garage for numerous years until he had no need for it. So he gave it to me and I gave it to Kilmarnock. So the old swee of Tam Sampson's house is lying in Kilmarnock somewhere in the archives. So that was, Kilmarnock Academy was good. I enjoyed that. Where are we?
Well, apart from your achievements with Burns in your second year, what else did you study at secondary school?
What else? It was a broad course. The big mistake, and I remember this to this very day, when we got to the choice options in second year, my father chose for me technical subjects and more technical subjects. And what that did was it cut out certain hires by the time we got to S5, S6. So my interest has always been history and such like, so that was a way altogether. So I finished up going into the technical line and finished up, in fact, being a technical teacher in my career, which I enjoyed. It was great. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
So what was your university education? Where was that?
It was Jordan Hill College of Education. They did what I did was a specialist teaching degree, a B.Ed, in fact, is what it is, a Bachelor of Education. And you could do that at Jordan Hill because they specialised in PE, technical, home economics, that kind of thing. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a good time. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Glad I did it because in technical gave you more of an in with the kids, because it was hands-on type stuff and it was really good. The kids liked it, you liked it, so it was good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I lived in Eldersley Crescent in Kilmarnock, moved to Christhouse for a year, and then came back into Kilmarnock to Llewellyn Crescent. So I spent all my life there until I met Sheila, who was a Troon girl, and we bought a house in Symington, and we were there for 30 years. We moved 5 years ago. We have 2 children, Jen and Douglas, and 2 grandsons, 4 and 2, who, as you said earlier, certainly fill our time there a joy. And I have to say, the wee fella, 4-year-old, knows exactly who Robert Burns is, I have to say. That he's very interested and I've been telling him about Burns, so that's good.
Excellent.
Aye. Retired 10 years ago and moved to Prestwick, and that's where we are now, in Prestwick.
And that time when you were teaching, you also encouraged a lot of the pupils to form their own Burns Club, if I remember rightly.
That's true. I've got that down here. This is I did coaching in Burns all my teaching life. When I got an opportunity, I moved in, and in fact, I later got in touch with all the primary schools in my group, and I offered my services. So I finished up, some years going to 6 primaries, doing poetry with them, bringing somebody in to judge the poetry, and that was really good. I had a group. I started a Burns Club in the school. Didn't have one, so I started a Burns Club. Took out a life membership with the Burns Federation, so we should be in the records as the only school that has a life membership in the Burns Federation, and we did very well. And in fact, one of the competitions we took part in, the national competitions, big thing, it was through the East Coast, and out of 9 categories, my lot took 4 firsts and a second. And it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Excellent. So
that was good. And a lot of these I call them kids now, they'll be in their 40s now. are actually in the world of entertainment, and some of them do buns every year. So I feel that I've made a wee sort of notch there, you know. It's quite
Tremendous.
good. Enjoyed that.
Well,
Very good. I mean, one finished up being an operatic singer. She's, you know, sort of travels around the world singing opera. So, good. You feel you've done a wee bit. You've sort of added to their width, you might say.
Yeah. Apart from the hobby being buns and having your family, did you have time for any other interests?
Oh, where do you want to start? I played rugby. I played rugby in Kilmarnock from the age of 18 until I retired when I was 32. I played at a reasonably high level. We were, at that time, Kilmarnock, we reached third in the Scottish First Division in 1976. I was playing there. We also had a good seven-a-side team that I played in, and I think we won between 20 and 30 competitions through my time. So rugby was good, you know. It was different. When I watched the game, films of the game of that time, it's a different game to what they play now. Today, I would say, it's not like in a rugby. It's too start and stop and too many big guys that in my day you ran about, you know. So rugby was certainly very prominent. I joined the Junior Chamber of Commerce in Kilmarnock, became president of that. What else did I do? Later on, I bowled in Kilmarnock, bowled at Portland Bowling Club. I was always active. I was always doing things, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I golfed a wee bit. I walked a lot. Hill walking was my big thing. I did a lot of hill walking. So I did the field a bit. But rugby at that time was certainly the biggest of the thing, biggest of the lot. Yeah.
Well, I started talking about yourself, and we got on to talking a bit about buns, but I'll hand you over to Jim now and get him to get into the bun stuff in a bit more depth.
Before we get to buns, if I can say the thing here that Jim would know, I was president of the Junior Chamber, as I said, and I did a bit of bowling and curling, but I remember I came upon Davy Smith, and Jim will know exactly who Davy Smith was. He was the judge, Big Davy with the big beard.
Oh, I remember him too.
Keen buns man. I mean, really liked his buns at all. And he and I sort of made a contact to some extent. But I remember a story that was told about him, that he was apparently on the bench one day when this wee sort of rough young lady was brought in crying her eyes out. And Davy, being the sort of caring type, leaned over and said, "What's wrong, dear? You seem to be upset." And she turned to Davy and said, "That big effing sergeant across there said it was nothing but a wee toe rag from Saltcoats. And you're not from Saltcoats, dear." Which I thought that was just Davy. That was just Davy.
Well, that was worth getting us back onto your subject. But we'll get over to Jim now and let him get into the depth of your buns interest.
Well, Jim, in terms of starting with buns, you obviously started very young at the school and you've continued all your life. I think it would be of assistance if you told the folk watching about your career in buns and the clubs you've been a member of and your service to the buns movement, if I'm being honest.
I met buns, first of all, as I said, at when I went to Prestwick Academy, my first school. I was asked to do the Toaster Lassies, 1974. I had really no idea what it was, but it seemed to go down reasonably well. But my first real foray into buns, when I was president of the Junior Chamber of Commerce, as I said, I was had been invited by Peggy Thompson to toast the lassies at the Kilmarnock Buns Club Bun Supper in either 1981-82. Over 100 of Kilmarnock, and you'll know them, over 100 of Kilmarnock's finest business people were in attendance. Lots of well-to-do men and women, and some I had schooled with. The individual proposing the toast to the mortal memory was running late, and we were well into our meal when he arrived. Now you'll recognise the pattern here. He was a good-looking young man, well-spoken, with a very attractive dark-haired girlfriend. I remember that. He didn't appear to have any notes. He sat down, finished off his meal, and was later introduced as Dr. David Purdy. a young medic, and he was young. He was in his 20s, late 20s at the time. And not only did he not have any notes, he recited several verses of Tam O'Shanter in German. I remember that. It made a huge impact with me. And he was really good. I remember thinking, this guy is really good. And by the time he finished, I was looking for an escape route, I have to say, because I had to follow this guy. And I thought, this is my first time. I thought, no way. But he was most gracious. I went down reasonably well. But this guy really, from the day one, stuck out as being a good speaker, which we know he is. A bit eccentric, but he's a good speaker. So that was good. Joe Kennedy decided to join Kilmarnock Burns Club way back in those days. We put an advert up in the Dick Institute looking for new members. And Joe had just come out of his chest. He wanted something else, so Burns was the thing, because he liked Burns. And Susan, his wife, had encouraged him. They saw this sign in the Dick Institute, Kilmarnock Burns Club. So Joe came along to the first meeting. And I can remember it yet. We were introduced. It was a well-respected club, as you well know, but the study of Burns and the whys and wherefores of good public speaking were not really top of the list in Kilmarnock. Joe, I lost the place. Joe sort of came and he had to listen to Peggy Thompson talking about bridge roles and filled roles and what we were filling with them, or we get donuts as opposed to, she was talking about the coffee morning that was coming up. But Joe was there to talk Burns, and he was really a bit miffed and a bit put out about the whole thing. So that was my first meeting with Joe. He settled in, eventually went on to other clubs, and he was more of a guy for talking Burns, talking about Burns and what he did and recitations, etc. And he was not really into making bacon rolls for a coffee morning. So
We've all got great memories of Joe, and it's surprising how many times his name has come up when we've been doing these podcasts.
Talk a wee bit about Kilmarnock Number Nothing and its journey since you joined to the current day. My understanding of it was the last time they had a Burns supper, you were there, and they were very generous in terms of their praise.
To me?
Yes.
Yes, they were. I mean, they gave me a honorary membership or whatever it was, and I was really quite chuffed. I've been at Kilmarnock Burns Club since 1980 or so it's 40 odd years, and what they gave me was totally unexpected. A nice glass disc, with Burns on it. So I'm very pleased about that. The club is doing reasonably well. They've got a new president, and they hold it in the Masonic Lodge now, and they have it. There are 30-40 people attending, so they're really still quite healthy. Good to see.
That's good news.
Good to see. Yeah. It depends on who you have as president. It comes and goes, as you well know. But at the moment, they're doing fairly well. The last one was nice.
And you're still a member of Prestwick, I take it?
I'm a member of Prestwick. I moved to Prestwick 5-6 years ago and joined the club. Became the president, as you do, after the year. But I discovered that the Prestwick club were not the real club, that they had been founded in 1964 or something. But I knew from a reading that Prestwick existed long before that, because there was a programme from 1909 where the editor of the Kilmarnock Standard spoke at the Prestwick Burns Club's Burns Supper. So actually, I took the club back about 60 years in terms of history, way back to the turn of the century or early 1900s. But they, again, they're a small membership, but they're healthy. They work away, they keep going. We did a wee Burns Supper on the net, and it's been accessed by several hundred people so far. So Prestwick are okay. They're doing fairly well. Doing well.
Knowing you well, I mean, your heart is obviously in terms of Burns in Kilmarnock, and Douglas and I have both had the privilege of in a tour of Kilmarnock with you. Talk about, do you do that much nowadays? Take folk.
I've been out for a while. What I've done is I'm very fond of reading old programmes, as you are, old stuff to do with Burns and letters, etc. And I was finding a lot of stuff was being left about or thrown out or such like. So I started collecting old programmes and letters, and I finished up with about a photographed them, I photocopied them all, so I've got them on the computer. I finished up with 200 plus items of programs, fronts of programs, the actual stuff that was happening at the dinner. I've got letters going back to 1820, that sort of thing. I've got a letter from the Farming Society about Gilbert. So I thought, what do I do with these things? So I've copied them all. I've got them all on computer, the programs and the letters and everything. And then I donated them to East Ayrshire. There was a time when you could put your stuff in and they would look after it, but it had to become theirs. So I thought, might as well. So it's in the East Ayrshire archive. If anyone's looking for any information on Kilmarnock Burns Club, it's in there. Minutes, who was working with them, 1850s, old photographs. It's lying in the archive of Kilmarnock, and it's readily available to anybody. But I would say, I've got it all on computer, and I would love to pass it all on to other people. If somebody wanted, if they gave me a wee pen, I could give them a couple of hundred photographs of old programs and certificates and letters and such like, and they could keep a hold of that forever. I've got that, and I want to circulate it. I want people to have it, so if they need to read it or need to use it in the future, it's there. Love them to have it. I'm also doing a booklet. I mean, I'm taking this from Jim. I know Jim did his book. I have, with all the stuff I've collected, I've now got about 15, 16 chapters of a book of the history of Kilmarnock. Some of it I've just lifted from other things, some of it I've written. So it gives us a history, a total history of Kilmarnock with all the people who have come through it, the presidents, the story about Carnegie coming to Kilmarnock, all these things I've got on disc. And I'm at the point where I'm falling down at the moment is getting it into some sort of order for a booklet. I'm not quite sure the next stage, but it's finished, it's ready to go. And it's something that I'll be looking at. And I'm quite happy to take advice from anybody. I know Jim's done a book, so any advice would be quite grateful.
Well, the only advice I would give you is proofread. And when you've proofread it about 40 times, take another couple just to make sure.
Right.
Because that's what will catch you as it did with me. But I'm delighted you're doing that.
Yeah. I might give you a phone, Jim, actually, and just get a few pointers from you.
Aye, well, you're welcome. But I mean, you put a lot of effort into that printing press in the Dick Institute, and I think you need to tell folk about that, because for me, that's a great attraction if you come to Kilmarnock in terms of Burns.
I was looking at the photograph yesterday. I've got it up in a wee patio type thing of me standing beside the printing press, and it's a thing of beauty, Jim. You know that. I remember. I gave it a hug. In fact, I gave it a hug. How sad is that? It's a lovely oak piece of. I mean, it's just right to look at. The colour's right. It's all good. I was involved. I looked after the money for it. I got the guy to do the metalwork, a friend of mine in Glasgow, who did the metalwork to get the screw, to get the right amount of depression in the screw. And it's just great. I feel part of it, and it's there, and I hope it stays there forever. They were going to move it into the new headquarters at some point, but it's still on the deck with all the relevant material. And to me, it's a work of art. I gave it a hug, as I said, the first time. It was so beautiful. And it's there for everybody to go and see. To be encouraged.
I was in one day when the school kids were using it and actually doing prints.
Aye.
And so it's actually a working thing, and it would be great if folk who are an interest in Burns could go and see it,
I think they locked it up. I mean, it's just they didn't want people coming in and using it, so I think it's locked up simply. It can't work anymore, but it's there. What you do is you do your stuff. The print is on in the computer, and you bring it up, you access it, and you put your own club name or school name onto the computer, print it out, and then you can use the printing press, and it's a wonderful thing. So much history.
That's an amazing achievement.
But just talking about history, you've been a kind of archivist in a way in terms of Ayrshire Burnsians. I've still got, I don't know, I must have about 8 or 9 of your DVDs and videos.
Yeah.
I mean, these great characters, it'd be lovely if you could talk about them for a wee while.
As you know, Jim, there are many characters in Burns as they are now, as there were before. And we know that in the past, we had people like Bill Morrison, we had people like Felix Todd. Now, Felix was a miner in his early days, and when you hear him talking about Burns, it's something else. The guy's a genius. You know, he had read Burns, he understood Burns. I remember one day he talked about what poem was it? And he started telling us the story. And the story, I couldn't see the story, but it was there. It was a religious story, brought out the New Testament, that he had brought out at all. And in fact, it was really first class in my mind. He was a very gracious guy, a very well-read guy. And Burns, there was nobody to surpass him in my mind. But at that time, we had people like him. We had Charlie McGorian as a singer. We had Bill. Who else? We had Joe Kennedy, who was good. We had lots of people who did Burns and who are forgotten now because they've passed away. So what I did was I decided as well that I, as well as Felix Todd and Charlie, I would do Bill Morrison too, because Bill was a spectacular character. And I interviewed Bill twice. I went to his house and I sat with him. I think Joe was with me the first time. And we gave him some questions and encouraged him to recite, which he did. So I've got 2 DVDs or CDs of Bill being interviewed. I also took the camera up to one of the hotels in Kilmarnock when it was an open night type thing, but Billy was essentially the performer. And he did 2 stints of 30 minutes, 35 minutes each, and I've got them in video too. I also interviewed Joe Kennedy, you know, did a 15, 20-minute interview with him. I've got Angus doing not the Morton, Tam O'Shanter. So all these guys are there for history. And again, I would love, I know I'll pass some of them on. I would love to pass them on to somebody else because they're worth looking at. I've even got the Burns Club that used to be in Cross House. What was that called? Do you remember?
No.
I've got them as well. I've got them in tape as well. So I've got 5 or 6 tapes of various people of that time who are away now. I've got the first Burns supper in the Bachelors Club. The first one we had with Joe and I put together, and Joe chaired it. And there's folk like Sandy Drain, Charlie McGorian, Phil Todd, Jim, the guitar player. You know, all these guys are there, all doing their piece, and it's great. And I remember I did the vote of thanks at the time, and I said, "Look, guys, I've just finished my year as president of the Burns Federation. I have never in my travels seen anything like this, because under that roof that night at the Bachelors Club was the cream of Burns. It really was. It really was. These were guys that had the right accent. They could do the poetry properly. They loved the poetry. They loved Burns as a man. When Phil Todd was invited to speak, he was crying.
Yeah.
Phil Todd, tears, and he said, "I'm so chuffed to be here." He was crying just with the whole feeling of being in the Bachelors Club and talking about Burns. And that night was great. And it's on tape. I mean, I've got it on tape. It's there somewhere. It will pass. When I pass, so will the tape. So it has to go somewhere, you know, where it's remembered. And that's I'm very fond of history. I say I've done the book. I've got all the bits and pieces there. I've got a lot of the individuals on tape to be heard by other people, to be enjoyed by other people. So hopefully, sometime in the future, people will use these things.
I hope so, because people like Bill Morrison need to be remembered. Joe Kennedy, his wife was having a wee holiday break from his care, and he was in that place up in Unthank. And Joe and I, just before Joe died, it was about 3 or 4 months before Joe died, and we went up to see him, and we went in to see him, and he started reciting poems.
Joe.
You know, and he must have done it for, I mean, at least 30 minutes, non-stop, all wonderful. And I mean, he must have been about 90 at the time. You know, it was wonderful. And it would be terrible to lose these people.
Is this Bill Morrison you're talking about? Bill?
Yeah.
Aye.
Well,
that's right, because Bill, I never ever heard him forgetting anything. He had a superb mind in terms of memory. And you could suggest a poem to him and he would do it. The only one he wouldn't do was Holy Willie. He said, "I'm not built for Holy Willie, Jimmy. I don't quite look and feel like Holy Willie." So he would never do Holy Willie. he would do everything else, especially to Davy.
Well, the Epistle to Davy is the best I've ever heard in my life. Just absolutely wonderful. It really was.
He's a great guy.
But you mentioned there about your year as president of the Federation. I mean, I think it would be helpful to folk if you told them about your journey in the Federation.
I started off, as I said before, I was asked to be vice president of Kilmarnock Burns Club, which I did and enjoyed it. I became president, and because I was president, I attended the Association, and I met people like Phil Todd, these sort of guys, and I got really impressed by them and really impressed by Burns and what he meant, and learned more and more about it. And then I went along to the Burns Federation. And the first Federation meeting, as I mentioned before, was in 1986, September 86, in Kilmarnock, in the Grand Hall, and Morrison Ogilvie was in the chair. And I became really quite interested in it. So I went along and became the rep of the Association to the Burns Federation. And being me, you know, I was there and I took on a responsibility, and I became convener. I've been convener of literature. I've been the convener of what else? Conference, obviously, for a long time. Did the conference, organised these, which were really good. And then it seemed to me natural to move on and aim for the presidency. You know, junior vice, senior vice, you did it yourself, and became the president in 2001, I think it was 2002, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It opened my eyes as to what the Federation is to some extent, but I was president in 2001, past president, and then I was still involved in the conference and literature at some point. It was really good from the point of view, it was a national organisation, but what really motivated me at the beginning was the fact it was founded in Kilmarnock, and I really liked that. There were 17 people met in Kilmarnock. They had been at a wreath laying in London, and somebody, one of the Kilmarnock boys, I think Sturrock or so, suggested, wouldn't it be nice to have a federation of Burns clubs? And they said, right, okay, let's have a meeting. So they arranged a meeting for Kilmarnock, and 17 people met in Kilmarnock, 14 of whom were members of Kilmarnock Burns Club. So they met and they put the federation together. And I think for the first 4 or 5 years, the presidents were from Kilmarnock, but it quickly picked up and they started spreading the presidencies and spreading the meetings to some extent. They've been to America several times, and that's good to see. But it's to me, it's good that the federation keep going. You know, it's worthwhile. It's not everybody's cup of tea, I have to say. But they do good work. The guy who's president just now, I like his style. He's a go-getter. You know, he's been pushing and using a lot of TV stuff for the federation. So yeah, it's got to keep going. It's good. It keeps Burns' name alive, and as long as there are good people to come in there and push it along, it will prosper.
Did you travelled far in your presidential year?
I travelled all over England, and I went to America, to Atlanta, to get the chain, and that was good. Spent about a week there getting the chain, and I remember coming back because the chain was in I had a bum bag sort of thing, and the chain was all rolled up, and the fella stopped me, the customs man, and we opened it up, and there was this 2¼ pounds of solid gold, you know, which was the chain, but we got it through okay. Yes, Atlanta was good. They were very good to us, and it was nice to go there and come back. It cost a lot of money, but these things do. But that was good. Enjoyed that.
Okay, can I take you back to, you were talking about the history of Kilmarnock Burns Club, and you name dropped Carnegie. Is there a story there that you could tell us?
Oh yeah, there's a story. There's a newspaper article too that Carnegie was doing his travels, and I don't know if I think he came to Kilmarnock, but there's certainly a story that Carnegie was going to build a temple to Robert Burns, and there were drawings. And I've got the drawing that's going to go in my wee book, a drawing of a huge Greek-style temple with big columns and such like. And he was going to give some like £500,000 to build this. And people were really, wow, but it was untrue. It had been made up. And after a bit of research, they found out there was a local councillor who had been a bit naughty. He had used one of the typewriters in the office and managed to trace him back through that. So it never happened. It was just a non-story. But the temple looks fantastic.
So fake news even existed in these days?
Sorry?
Fake news existed in these
Fake
days?
news existed then, and so the guy was a counsellor himself. I think he was suspended for several weeks or months, but he came back and he was a counsellor again, you know. It's a good story, good story.
You've talked about all these many characters that you've come across in your time with Burns, and what they did. What about yourself? What's your favourite type of contribution to a Burns supper?
I'll do poetry, but I'm not, you hear poetry being done by good guys. I'm not like them at all. I do Immortal Memories and Lassies. It's all right. You know, I'm nothing. I listen to real guys speaking, and I'm really impressed by them. I can do it. I do it if asked to. And it's acceptable, but it's nothing to write home about. But it's I like to do my bit. And I had two last week.
I think you're underselling yourself a bit, and I think with a bit of luck, we'll twist your arm into doing something for us before we finish.
I had two on computer just the other week there, you know, online, and I found it quite daunting because I was actually stupid enough to tell jokes online, you know. I knew they were funny and I knew they would laugh at it at the other end, but I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? I'm telling a joke to television here, you know. But no, I enjoyed it. I hear speak. I mean, Jim sitting beside you, he's Jim. I've heard Jim, and Jim really opened my eyes once. I was invited to speak at the police Burns supper in Trim, and we all got sat down. And I remember Jim turned to me and says, "Right," he says, "you'll be after me." I said, "Fine, fine. I'll be about half an hour," he says. And I thought, he's the chairman. What's he take half an hour for? But when he started, he went round every officer in the hall and nailed him to the wall. I thought, yeah, that's style. I like that. I like that. Yeah. So I'll do my bit in Burns, and I'll do most things. I don't, and I'm not just saying this. I don't do them particularly well. I do them because I enjoy them.
Yeah.
Whether it be poetry or I've got a nice wee bank of jokes I can use in the Lassies, and you learn as you go on over the years, just not to go too far and not to offend people, and I've reached a reasonably good place in it.
I think you're being too modest, James. I've got to be honest and say your immortal memory is absolutely brilliant, and anybody having you there, given an immortal memory, would be delighted at that Burns supper. But when you're talking about not being a good reader, I think you should maybe do a verse or two of anything, and then folk will be able to judge for themselves.
Okay. There are many poems that I like, you know, and then I'll go and I'll hear folk doing Tam O'Shanter that are really good. I like to choose my verses from different poems that mean a lot to me. There's one, the Epistle to the Reverend Mcmath, which I think is fantastic. God knows I'm no the thing I should be, nor am I even the thing I could be. But 20 times I rather would be an atheist clean than under gospel colours hid be just for a screen. I like that one too. Man was made to mourn, as well as another one, which is a great verse. If I designed your lonely slave by nature's law designed, why was an independent wish you planted in my mind? The Epistle to Davy as well. It's no in titles nor in rank. It's no in wealth at Lunnon Bank to purchase peace and rest. It's no in Mackin muckle mayor. It's no in books. It's no in lear to make us truly blessed. If happiness did not her seat and centre in the breast, we may be rich or wise or great, but never can be blessed. Nae pleasures nor pleasures can make us happy lang. The heart's aye the pertie that makes us right or wrong. That's a superb verse in my mind. And I get really annoyed, I have to say, when Jeremy Paxman starts complaining about Burns' poetry having no substance at all. He obviously hasn't read the stuff, or he's read one or two and just taken it at face value. These poems are fantastic. To a Mouse, a simple poem with a fantastic message in it. Still, thou art blessed compared with me, the present only touches thee. But oh, I back will cast my E and prospects drear, and forward, though I cannot see, I guess, and fear. Wonderful stuff. And I was reading as well about that to a mouse. A volcano in Iceland had blown up about 1781-82, and Burns at his farm were suffering the repercussions of bad winters and rain and such like. So the whole thing was connected up. But that poem to me just sums up mankind. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Well done, Jim. And I think our audience would be happy for you reciting any of these poems. Well, I think we're getting close to at the end of our time. Is there anything else, Jim, that we want to talk about?
Just where do you go with Burns from here, Jim?
Where do I go? The next thing's the book, my wee book, Jim. I've been going at it now for quite a few years, and it's lying dormant in my computer. I have to make a move to get it out there. You know, it's just information. It's just information about Kilmarnock and Burns from the very beginning, the people who've been involved, one or two wee stories, the past presidents, all that. It's there as a vehicle for somebody who wants to write something else or read about Kilmarnock. So I'll get that out. That's my next thing. I don't know if I'll do any more Burns suppers. You know, I did a couple online. I've said no, but when somebody comes and asks, okay, I'll pick the ones I want to do and do them. As you do. I do enjoy my mortal memory. You know, mortal memory has developed over the years, as they all do. I enjoy doing my mortal memory because in the mortal memory, it's saying stuff that I want to say. You know, it's Burns, but it's about me. It's about how I feel, and I find it quite good to do. And it's not that long, 20 minutes or so. So it's very acceptable. So I enjoy that. So I might continue doing that. We shall see.
Good. And are you likely to get the book finished in the near future?
The book can be finished next week if I knew just how to present it to the printer. Yeah, yep. What I've done is at the moment I've got about 15, 16 chapters written out. They're all written, but in separate chapters. One's the folk that have played a part in the Kilmarnock committee over the years. I've got a variety of things anyway, and they're all there in their own particular chapter with photographs as well. It's all there waiting to be printed. So what I have to do, I've gone over it several times, looking at it to make sure it's okay. It could do with 2 or 3 other people going over it as well. I want to know how to give it to the printer. How do I actually present it to the printer? And as I say, we'll get it done sometime. That's my next project, to get it out as soon as I can.
Well, Jim, how about this for a deal? When you've got the book finished, how about coming back on with us and you can talk us through the book and do a bit of promotion for it? That'd be great. That'd be superb. I'll need to talk to Jim first. I'll talk to Jim as well because I know he's been through the whole process. And as I say, it's not going to be it's going to be a wee A5 type size thing with maybe 100 pages or so. But it's all the information is in there, and I would love to get it out so people can actually have it. Great. So, well, that's brilliant. So if we can get you back, that's tremendous. But in the meantime, it just leaves me to say thanks very much, Jim, for giving up your time and telling us about your life with Robert Burns. Thank you. Just cheerio, folks. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you enjoy your Burns as much as I do. And hopefully we will meet again.